When Pixar was first starting out, it was an event. Pixar in its heyday had cemented itself as being in a league of its own, creating culturally defining films such as Ratatouille, The Incredibles, WALL-E. But over the years, there's been talks about Pixar having fallen off, and I sort of agree. But what exactly changed with Pixar? Did something change in the Pixar formula? Did we all just simply grow up? What happened here? So, I ended up watching all the Pixar movies to get to the bottom of this. And I want to be clear. I don't think Pixar is actively making bad films. I just don't think they're making the same culturally defining films that we typically hold Pixar to. But there's still some occasional gems that pop up every now and again. And having spent the last few weeks just shotgunning Pixar movies, I do think it's a little disingenuous to say that we simply grew out of Pixar. A lot of these old Pixar movies still really hold up and are still incredibly relevant today. But anyway, let's get into the changes that Pixar has made to its approach to characters, to world building, to even its most basic methodology for storytelling.
I defrauded a major corporation.
I robbed the second largest bank in France using only a ballpoint pen.
I think the most obvious change is how Pixar approaches its character writing. The way that I would try to describe it is, old Pixar characters were characters that felt like people, and new Pixar characters are characters that feel like characters. Now, what do I mean by that? For me to first explain this, I'm gonna need to first talk about good optics. Good optics, very simply, is how a character looks to us, the audience. Everything from what they say, how they act, who they are, what they want, all play a role in how we, the audience, perceive them. Creators, and especially studios, worry a lot about how their characters look to us. They never want them to look explicitly like bad people, because then it makes it harder to root and cheer for them.
You are a bad guy, but this does not mean you're a bad guy.
And this design philosophy around good optics has been around with Pixar since the very beginning with Toy Story 1. Originally, Woody was this heartless, mean-spirited, egomaniacal monster.
You don't think I was right? Who said your job was to think, Spring Wiener? If it wasn't for me, Andy wouldn't pay any attention to you at all. In fact, my stretchy friend, you would have been hauled away to Goodwill a long time ago, so shut your mouth and get them off the bed.
It's bad.
From there, they proceeded to tune him down, give him some charm, made him a little funny, and then Woody became this charismatic leader who cared for the well-being of everyone around him. But, and here's the most important thing, he still remained flawed. He's still jealous and vindictive, and still in the first movie tried to get rid of Buzz. And that's kind of key, to have characters who are mostly pretty good and charming and likable, but also see how they're flawed, how they're short-sighted, how they hurt intentionally or otherwise the people that they care about in pursuit of their goals. It makes them flawed, but it also makes them people. And it's exactly that made their arcs bigger and their characters more memorable. And then Pixar's sense of good optics went overboard. There's a scene in Ratatouille that kind of hints at the problem of pursuing good optics. In this scene, Remy, having just recently lost his family and his friends, mostly due to his own fault by the way, is left starving, homeless, and alone. He's crawling through the structures of the city above and happens upon a party where the humans aren't minding their food and he's left alone with an opportunity to finally eat. Until...
What are you doing?
I'm hungry! I don't know where I am, and I don't know when I'll find food again.
Remy, you are better than that. You are a cook. A cook makes. A thief takes. You are better than that. You are
Respectfully, Gusto, is Remy better than that? We didn't need to see Remy not stealing to be considered a good person. We understand that as a rat and the stigma therein, that he does what he has to do to survive. And I pointed out because Ratatouille doesn't really have a good stance about theft. The only time he actively gets punished for it is when Linguini spots him giving food to his friends and family. Linguini takes him back because, well, he's a fraud who can't actually do any cooking. He needs Remy.
Oh, baby, please don't be like that. She meant nothing to me. I can change. I can change.
All this to say that, in trying to make Remy look like a better person, they made him act in a way that's actually counter to who he is. Remy isn't above stealing to survive. I love Ratatouille. I think personally it's the best movie that Pixar has ever made. Anyone Can Cook is a beautiful message that says greatness can come from anywhere. Remy is a dreamer. He chases his dreams with reckless abandon, and I cannot emphasize the reckless part of that. He almost abandons his family and any sense of obligation he has to them because he gets to live his dream, and later softly learns that he needs them. He needs the community and allyship to survive and thrive. That's a really beautiful and complex, heartfelt message that the movie leaves you with. When you look at a lot of these new Pixar characters and stories, you see that they kind of feel a little bit too clean, static, and sanitized. And I'm not even just talking about like the new characters and the new IP. I'm talking about all the sequel series stuff as well. Most, if not all, the Pixar characters from this point on, they don't really have anything that could be construed as an actual flaw or chase their wants in a way that will actually hurt other people in a genuinely, truly selfish way like they did in Pixar's past. Where Remy was ready to dip on his family so that he could go and cook at his dream job, and Bob from The Incredibles was actively risking his relationship with his wife and kids to chase a midlife high, and Woody doing this, Ember from Elemental just doesn't want her family to get evicted, Purple Tom Holland just wants to see his dead dad, and Merida doesn't want to be forcibly married against her will.
Ach, lang me your lumdrike me a moose nearly you'd gurn away a teardrop in his eye. Hey, she back me, lassie!
I have no fucking clue what you just said, but hell yeah, man, I'm gonna speak my truth.
The list goes on, but I can't really keep talking about this without addressing the big mouse in the room. Before they are storytellers and artists, Pixar and Disney are a company. And that means they have to think about a lot of things.
Starting with our stockholders, Bob! Who's helping them out, huh?
Disney has spent a lot of time building itself up to be this giant corporation that is very family friendly. They've spent decades forming this familiar, friend-shaped, amorphous idea of what Disney means. Safe, enjoyable, and non-controversial. Because they're trying to cater to a global audience now. Before, they weren't as heavily needing to worry about accurate portrayals or good optics as much. As they expanded, they had to cater to more people globally. Fears of blocking out specific markets or not min-maxing media meant messages and story beats had to be defanged and declawed. Subtle lessons and perspectives had to be whittled down, because it would mean losing out on sales and that brand loyalty otherwise. And that priority as a company meant, even though they are so big with such vast resources, you get a lot of otherwise oftentimes safe and less interesting choices, and stories that leave people wanting for something more. And so when we get to Pixar, because this is a Pixar video, you can almost start to see Disney's very clean-cut, corporatized DNA really making its way into the character writing process. sanding down the character's flaws to be as unproblematic as possible, and as a result, giving less, deeper, richer people as possible. Alright, so small story time. I used to work as a recruiter once, where I'd run interviews with candidates to see who would be the best fit for a given job role. And one of the questions I'd ask is often, what do you consider your biggest weakness? The answers that you never want to give, by the way, are the ones that are like, I care too much or I work too hard, because it comes across as disingenuous or at the very least closed off. Nothing of value is being revealed by those statements. And this is the issue that Pixar finds itself in now with all of its latest works. The characters are fun and cute and quirky, and they have real problems, sure, but they're only allowed to act in a way that is still approved by a board to be as non-problematic as possible.
Help me!
First time?
Of course it is! I'm a good kid!
Alright, that's as good a segue as any to talk about Turning Red and Luca. I want to be clear, I actually really enjoy both of these films. I think they're a lot of fun. But they both help illustrate the issue that Pixar currently has with all of its new and sequel characters. When you look at Mei Lin, she's a charming and intentionally cringe 13-year-old girl who just wants to spend some time away from her family and spend some time with her friends. Most reasonable people would agree that's not a bad thing to want and is pretty reasonable for any kid. The issue with what Mei Lin wants isn't that it's any level of unreasonable. The issue with what Mei Lin wants is that it doesn't really put her in conflict or reveal anything about her character that is deeper, newer, or like actively revealing more about who she is. She's a kid who just wants freedom. She also doesn't do anything particularly unreasonable in the pursuit of her goals. Mei Lin basically fundraises her own trip and disobeys her parents, but the worst thing she does is kind of just throw her friends under the bus so that she doesn't get in trouble with her mom. Which, bad, but that we justify with, this is a kid. And it's literally the kind of one bad thing she does in this movie that we can all just kind of point to and go, that's not great, but it's understandable. She also attacked this kid, but he was giving me some real racist undertones, so you know.
Finish him!
For the most part, Mei Lin is a very good kid. Nothing she does actively puts her or her friends and family necessarily in harm's way, even when they do turn into giant red pandas. Ah, Luca. Luca.
Gay or European.
Luca is especially noteworthy here, because what he wants is actually dangerous for him and his family. If exposed, he'd have risked his family's lives to satisfy his curiosity of the world above the water. But even in the beginning, he himself isn't able to make that choice by himself. Instead, he is literally pulled into making that choice by Alberto, the kid that the audience can point to and go, ah, that's the bad kid. That's the bad gay kid. This gay kid that's corrupting my son. I'm so tired, guys. Luca as a character has plausible deniability, that any wrongdoing he did wasn't actually his fault. And it's because it's not Luca's fault that he looks better to us from an optics perspective, but from a character writing and character agency perspective, Luca becomes lacking. Again, these are not bad films. They just don't push the envelope like Pixar's movies used to do. There's also been a notable shift with Pixar in what is the main focus of their movies. A lot of their new projects all focus on having a kid main protagonist, or at least relating to children in some way. If they're not doing sequel movies, I mean. This isn't bad, but it is a shift in priority. By focusing on kids and having them be your main leads, you also effectively push your movie into being made for kids. Animation in the West has always been skewed towards a younger audience, but they were enjoyed by everybody. Even if children at the time didn't understand everything in the movie, they were able to engage with the parts that they did understand. The media didn't talk down to them by simplifying their perspectives or lowering their messages so that the children could understand. And as a result, the movies became way more profound and more worth engaging with instead of just the kids.
Remember the bad guys on those shows you used to watch on Saturday mornings? Well, these guys are not like those guys. They won't exercise restraint because you're children. They will kill you.
I want to talk about The Incredibles 2 here, because more than any of the other Pixar sequels, I think it's the one that audiences were the most excited about and then very whelmed by what they got. The Incredibles 2 is kind of explicit in how blatant it is with how good optics are played, because of the whole business motif in the room.
For our first move, well, Elastigirl is our best play. Evelyn did a cost-benefit analysis, and Elastigirl's numbers are self-explanatory.
Helen is doing effectively the same thing that Bob was doing in the first movie, but it's corporate sponsored, and not nearly framed the same way as her husband, despite the fact that it's set up in the same universe. Meanwhile, in the B-plot, it feels like Bob himself doesn't actually have anything noteworthy to do, as he's kind of just waffling through suburbia life, in a plot that honestly doesn't matter much to the story. It's cute and fun, but it's not relevant, as opposed to what you get in the first movie where Helen and the kids had active agency in what they were doing. When Bob was doing the superhero work, there was a real risk to their livelihoods and their family. Here, Helen is doing the same thing, but with basically the family's approval, with the rich people's approval. Heck, even the other superheroes in the community's approval. So then, where's the stakes? Where's the drama? Where's that
super special sauce?
I argue that we, the audience, aren't as engaged because we're calling Pixar's bluff. They aren't actually gonna harm Helen in a way that actually matters, and so she's not risking anything emotionally with her family. So there's a lack of stakes here for the audience to get invested into. And for most of the sequels, it almost seems as if they have no idea what to do with some of their most iconic characters. In Toy Story 4, it had very little buzz, despite the fact that he's been part of this dynamic duo relationship with Woody for decades. Inside Out 2 effectively just repeats everything that Inside Out 1 did, but just kind of swapped out sadness with anxiety, and had Joy learn basically the same lesson as she had before. You could remove Nemo and Marlin from Finding Dory, and literally nothing of consequence would actually change. Pixar has been sanding down their modern and old characters' edges, which makes them stand out less. It makes their arcs smaller, and the investment in their journey less engaging. A lot of these edges and personality were also what gave these characters such a good sense of authenticity. It's literally what made them stand out and become so notable. It was literally the sauce of the Pixar movies. And I think we've gotten less of it as time went on.
We lost ourselves, lost our dream, in the pursuit of
trying to appeal to mass global audiences for greatest market share value.
We failed to do good.
At last the roof goes on, and nothing can go wrong. Oh no, it all went wrong!
So this part is going to be a little bit hard to elaborate on, but bear with me. World building and camera focus. We'll start with world building because that's a bit easier to talk about. Good world building establishes the tone, the stakes, and what to expect from this world and the story. Remy's a rat, so he can't be a professional cook in a human kitchen. Buzz is stuck on an alien hostile world trying to get home. And Flick is a probably neurodivergent ant at the bottom of the food chain, trying to free his people from the oppressive, authoritarian regime so that he and his people may know true, sweet liberty and freedom of an honest, hard day's work. The world building cements the issues that the characters go through, and there's a genuine feeling of the characters existing in a world that is much bigger than them, and that the world doesn't actually revolve around them, even if the story does. This gives these worlds a sense of scale and adds gravitas to it. In the first Incredibles movie, we get a lot of indicators that Bob is not a particularly unique superhero, he's just one of many. In Finding Nemo, Marlin goes on this large journey to find Nemo, and for the most part of the movie, the world kind of doesn't care. It's only through Marlin's actions and Dory that he gets people, or fish, to care and want to eventually help him. And in Bug's life, Flick goes on a journey and sees
New York City,
all while his home was going through their own thing.
Get your fucking ass up and work.
Some of these would culminate into B-plots, or show the progression of time to progress the stakes and the plot, but also intentionally or unintentionally gave us a bigger sense of scale of the world. A lot of new Pixar films don't really do this. Far from it, actually. A lot of new Pixar stuff is very self-contained. Onward's story is about going on this epic quest only to have it loop back in front of the local high school, which makes the journey feel a little redundant and the world smaller. Monsters University takes place on a small college campus, and instead of a journey that goes across the ocean like they did in Finding Nemo, Finding Dory takes place basically in just one locale in Morro Bay, California. So it's here that I want to talk about the autobiographical thing. A while ago, the chief creative officer at Pixar, Pete Docter, this guy, put out a statement about how the underperforming movies of Luca, Soul, Turning Red, and Lightyear were making Pixar want to pull away from their autobiographical stories, and instead focus on films made for more general audiences, and that they are now going to go ahead and focus on and that they're now going to go on ahead and focus on making Pixar sequels instead. The autobiographical nature of some of these stories does play a part in how these movies are shot, written, and directed, but I don't think it's accurate to blame the autobiographical nature of these stories for the sort of falling off of Pixar's movies for the past few years. But more so that these movies come at a specific time in Pixar's life where they're just being restricted, as opposed to being the actual cause of the problem. And I say this because I don't think Pixar's actually had a culturally impactful, universally agreed upon great movie since Coco, which reads as very autobiographical, or as autobiographical as Luca and Turning Red. Pixar's new movies seem almost afraid to not have their cameras on their main characters, and evidently it's causing a shift in how the world building feels and causing some issues with some of their other movies. So allow me to talk about Soul and camera focus. I didn't think about this being an issue or a notable change in Pixar until I saw Soul. In Soul, the main protagonist, Joe Gardner, dies. Spoiler. And the entire film is about him effectively finding out what the point of living, and by extension, his own life, is. With Tina Fey, who is scared to be born. And honestly, girl, me too. The world ain't looking so hot right now. But the best part of this movie is Joe getting to see literally outside his own body, and what the world is like beyond his perspective. The other characters in this world have their own lives, and he's a part of it. And that's beautiful. It's very effective at illustrating the issue of just viewing things solely through your own myopic lens, or in this case, just the main character POV.
I don't know about this crazy cat guy thing, man, but it is nice to finally talk to you about something other than jazz, yo.
Huh. How come we, never talked about your life before?
You never asked. but I'm glad you did this time.
When the camera only sticks to the main character, it limits the perception of the world to the main characters, and thus makes the world feel smaller than what it actually is, thus lessening how much bigger and brighter, and in a very real way, how much more whimsical the world actually is. And that's kind of my point with a lot of the newer Pixar movies. They could be exploring whole new alien worlds, but by virtue of camera focus and perspective showcasing, things feel smaller or less interesting for us to engage in and thus explore. Let's talk about Lightyear.
Don't worry, Woody. In just a few hours, you'll be sitting around a campfire with Andy making delicious hot schmoes.
You got a friend in...
I'm gonna say something that's probably a uncommon take. I don't think Lightyear is as bad as people made it out to be. I wouldn't put it alongside Pixar's best, but it's not an actual terrible film. For those of you who haven't seen the movie, allow me to give you a quick rundown on some of the themes and what Lightyear is about. Lightyear is a movie about a man regretting a mistake he made in his past, sacrificing his present to fix it, and then sees the monster that he becomes in the future if he keeps following this course, with a main theme of trust. Buzz is trying to do a life-threatening mission, and he's stuck with these guys.
We're the Junior Patrol, at your service.
Do you have munitions training?
Partial.
Tactical engagement?
Pending.
Combat experience?
Yes! If you count the robot situation we just went through.
Did I get it?
Buzz!
Izzy, help! No!
Okay.
So the arc setup here is simple. Buzz is a character who has a hard time trusting the new blood to do anything right, and you have a bunch of new blood rookies who want to prove themselves. The typical route that this kind of story would take, for ease, would be to show how capable these rookies could be so that we, the audience, could form our own opinion away from Buzz. Because Buzz is our main focal point character, his opinion becomes the grounds for the audience's opinion. And the movie does a really bad job at proving his perspective wrong. And it's because the camera only sticks with Buzz, and meaningfully only with Buzz, that our opinion doesn't really get to change. Buzz has a change of heart later because he has to. Not because the crew actually earned our trust, and so it fails in executing the main theme cleanly. Which is a problem because the movie really wants to be a compelling story about trusting other people, but the movie never really goes out of its way to show them actually being trustworthy in life and death situations. Throughout the movie, they fumble, they mess up, and it can be both endearing and really funny, but it's ultimately there to pad time, and not to be in service of its story or its themes. But more to the point, the camera never moving beyond the main character actually really hurts the audience's engagement in this instance, with the world and its cast, because everything feels so much smaller. It feels so much more limited because it's limited to one person's perspective. To the point that the world almost feels like an afterthought. The world becomes and feels like it's only an obstacle rather than a world. And it didn't used to be this way. Pixar used to have worlds that felt so big even if they never went beyond the neighbor's house. The sense of scale and gravitas were so much bigger and filled with so much wonder and curiosity, and now less so. You don't get a chance to see how Malin's friends exist without her immediately showing up. The world of Onward is a world that has magic that can just do so many cool things, and it's just mostly gone. And for what? And the world in Riley's head feels so much smaller when compared to the other universes in the Pixar catalog. Increasingly now, there feels like there's something that is lost that Pixar used to have. This piece of world-building magic that made the world worth engaging in its own right, not just an obstacle for the main characters to go through. And this attention to camera focus and world-building leads me to my next point and why I think things have changed.
Hey, we got everybody?
Yeah, that's everybody. All right, first round's on Gronkowski.
Animation is a very intentional medium. It is also a very costly and time-consuming medium. But what you get in exchange for this cost is the arts and intentions personified. Every frame becomes a literal painting and visual spectacle that is able to do and explore things that live action could never do. But at the end of the day, it is still a business. And ideally, you'd want to make sure that every dollar is well spent and nothing is wasted, because you're trying to make the highest return on investment as possible. Which leads to certain unfortunate questions. Is this plot point necessary? Is this character likable enough to draw in and min-max having as many audience people coming into the theaters and streaming as possible?
Didn't you know? Why, you're valuable property!
It leads to scrutinizing every detail to try and ensure that every asset is utilized as effectively and efficiently as it could be. And this is all important and crucial, sure. However, there's a trade-off to that. There's a tug and pull between business and art. Business demands efficiency.
No more artsy-fartsy stuff. Just do a big circle and call it a night.
Almost all businesses are seeking to create what is effectively Oreos. They want to create a product that they know will make money and continue to make money forever. They want an easy formula and to do that with as little variance as humanly possible. It's how you get Marvel movies with their quipping white male leads and their giant sky lasers. It's also why Hallmark as a genre even exists. Art, however, demands to be something more. Artists want to be able to express themselves with an earnest goal to connect with an audience in a sincere way. In the process of doing so, it leaves some kind of notable impression on the audience. Pixar has been sliding more firmly into the business side of things as the years have gone by. And I know they have, because slowly over time, certain things that Pixar used to do have become lost. Some of you may not be old enough to remember, but Pixar used to do bloopers. Wait, are you being for real right now? Dude, I recorded this video, I edited this video, it took so long to make this video, and now, oh my lord. Okay, alright.
Speed marker.
Woo!
People had to animate, voice act, storyboard, do all these little things for these bloopers to exist back in the day. For functionally, nothing. These were fun extra pieces that really enamored the audience to Pixar as a company, to their films, and ultimately to their characters. This was a decision made in creative fun and not financial perspective. And as we moved forward, they kind of disappeared as Pixar shifted their priority and focus. This transitioning away from fun and that extra bit for efficiency, for making the most out of your dollar. Like, yes, we don't need these bloopers to exist to have a good Pixar movie, but there is something that is lost when you do lose that fun. That bit of extra that used to be commonplace. That little bit of Pixar magic. And I pointed out because this only started being an issue when this removal of fun, this desire to be efficient, started bleeding into every other piece of Pixar's work. From their characters, to their world building, to their camera focus, everything started to get sanded down. If it's not for efficiency, for the budget, for the production, or for maximizing audience investment in cute, quirky, non-problematic characters, then it had to be done away with. And this, I think, is ultimately where all the stuff previously mentioned stems from. But to really hit this point home, let me remind you all of one of Pixar's most iconic scenes.
Honey!
What?
Where's my super suit?
What?
Where is my super suit?
This scene from the first Incredibles movie is iconic. It's so deeply funny, it's so deeply memorable, and it builds up the world building to showcase a world beyond just the Parr family. It's also just entirely unnecessary, because let's just think about the logistics of this scene and the purpose that it serves. The only true function that this scene serves is to get Frozone from point A to point B. He needs to get from his apartment to go help out the Parr family because he can't just show up out of nowhere. This, on paper, would have been a really easy and quick cut and grab, and that would have been it. And that would have been how they probably would have done it if The Incredibles was actually made today.
Thought that it might be fun if we introduced a person that you learn is Honey. But we felt like we, A, stayed away from the big action scene too long, and that we were killing the momentum that we were gaining by having this big action scene.
Compared to the first movie where they went the extra distance. This funny little hop that Frozone does, the additional animation required to just have this thing turn. The fact that you had to get notable A-list actor Samuel L. Jackson, who is not cheap to get, by the way, to record this short, unnecessary scene. Also getting another voice actress to play the wife for this whole interaction, who we literally never get to see. All of it culminates into a richer experience that adds so much more to this movie, to this universe, to everything that makes the first Incredibles movie incredible. It's not necessary, and one that goes against narrative efficiency and mere business mindset. And I think the movie is genuinely better for it. Because of the business mindset, you lose something that's hard to articulate. It's not what is Pixar doing wrong, it's explicitly what is now missing. I have watched every Pixar movie that has come out thus far, and as of making this video, I can't tell you a single scene that I remember as strongly as Honey, Where's My Supersuit from any of the Pixar movies from the past decade. I could recount the plot of every single Pixar movie that has thus come out, but that's not the same as enjoying something profoundly. What Pixar is missing now is that magic, that fun, that little bit extra that pushes their movies from being just merely memorable to something that is truly awe-inspiring and culturally defining. So where does that leave Pixar now?
The world is often unkind to new talent, new creations. The new needs friends.
I am not making this video to crap on Pixar. I am not making this video to talk about, oh, it's over for Pixar. Pixar has fully fallen off and they'll never recover. That's not what this video is about. I think as a company, Pixar will probably be fine. As of recording this video, Inside Out 2 is currently the second highest grossing animated movie to have ever come out, and is Pixar's highest grossing animated movie to date. Financially, they're gonna be fine. But will they ever hit their highs like they used to from a cultural standpoint? Probably not. At the moment, it looks like Pixar is currently trying to tell diverse stories, and trying to do them for general audiences, but with an asterisk. Before, a lot of Pixar stories were for general audiences, that literally anybody could watch their movies and just be cool and be okay. Now, it's general audiences, but specifically with a focus on children. And to Pixar's credit, these movies are fun. Turning Red and Luca are good films. I didn't get a chance to talk about it, but win or lose Pixar's baseball show that they made, it's pretty charming, honestly. With these three properties, I feel comfortable enough to say that I think the old era of Pixar is gone. And barring any sequel titles, I think we're entering a new era of Pixar, where the people who are working at Pixar really do want to tell diverse stories and try to do them justice. I don't think they're ever going to hit the same highs as they did before, but also, I don't think they're trying to anymore. They're trying to do something different and trying to do something new. And I can respect that. Who knows? Maybe they'll find a new type of magic again. Hey, thanks for watching. This video took a lot of time and a lot of effort, so if you could, I'd appreciate a little like and subscribe, just a little bit, just a little one like and subscribe. Thank you so much, please. Please, I have an artist to feed, please. Also, here's a little tier list that I made of all the Pixar movies. Fight about it in the comments or something, I don't know.